Namaste, it's Sahara Rose, and welcome back to the Highest Self podcast, a place where we discuss what makes you your soul's highest evolvement. Before we get started, check out these brands that make Highest Self podcast possible. My favorite way of reading books is actually listening to them. Yes, I'm a self-proclaimed Audible junkie. Why? Because I'm able to walk, spend time in nature, clean my house, do all the things I need to do while still getting really high vibe content coming straight into my ears. If you love podcasts, then you are the perfect person to begin listening to audiobooks. If you would like to get started with a free audiobook of your choice, head over to audibletrial.com/highest self podcast. Again, Audible, AUDIBLE.com/highest self podcast, and you'll receive any audiobook of your choice absolutely free. Want more video content from me? Well, head over to my YouTube channel to check out my new show, Ask Sahara, where I will be answering your questions each week related to all things spirituality, entrepreneurship, Ayurveda, wellness, self-care, relationships, and everything in between. Head over to youtube.com/Sahara Rose, and if you have any questions that you would like me to answer on Ask Sahara, simply send me an email over at questions@eatfeelfresh.com. We already have a bunch of episodes live talking about all things from how to know if you're a cross between two doshas and what should you eat, how to become more confident, how do you find the one, how to shift into abundance mindset, and so much more. So head over to youtube.com/Sahara Rose to dive in. So this episode topic just hit me in the head like a pile of bricks. And it was like, you need to record an episode right now about this, spirit guides. And I literally just came home from the grocery store, like bags on the floor right now. And I felt like right now I just need to talk about this. So this is how you know when you're being guided, when you can feel this like word blabber coming out of your mouth and you don't even know what you're about to say. You just feel like you're like ready to go at it. Like I tell you guys all the time on the podcast, I feel like I'm like a boxer who's about to get in the ring. Like that's how I know I need to record an episode. I don't prepare. I don't plan. I don't say Friday at 4 p.m. I'm going to record my podcast. It's moments like this when it's like, boom, you need to talk about this right now. And that's how I know my episode topics and when to present them and what to say, because I have no idea what's going to show up in the next however long this episode ends up. But this is some channel shit right now. So what are spirit guides? This is something that many people have asked me because they hear me talk about it on the podcast. They hear people just in the spiritual community talk about spirit guides and messages from them and what do their spirit guides want and what do they say? And most importantly, how do you connect with them? So that's what I want to talk about in this episode. What are spirit guides and how do we connect with them? Now, before I get into it, I just want to say that if you're someone who needs like hard fact science to believe something, then this episode isn't for you. There are other episodes that are for you, but probably actually not that many on this podcast, but this episode for sure is not for you. And not that spirit guides cannot scientifically be proven. I believe one day they will be, but science moves slower than spirit. If you need science to prove everything, then you're going to be missing out on a lot in life. And as we know, electricity didn't exist 1,000 years ago. If you talked about, we had these bulbs that sparked out light and we could see everything at night, people 1,000 years ago would call you woo-woo. And now, just 200 years ago in the year 1800, we finally discovered it. And now we're aware of infrared, of lasers, electromagnetic frequencies. Like these are all commonly referred scientific modalities that there are like programs and about and companies based on. And if you just talked about them even 50 years ago, people would think that you're woo-woo crazy. So what I'm just trying to point is that a lot of the times when we can't prove something with what today's science is, we consider it out there, fake. We don't want to believe in it. We don't want to trust it. But that's like saying that electricity, electromagnetic frequencies, laser, infrared, all of these technologies that are so clearly scientific were once considered crazy. So that's why we need to open up our perspectives, open up that third eye. That's part of doing the work and shifting into becoming multidimensional beings, fifth dimensional beings, which I'll for sure talk about on this episode. So spirit moves much faster than science. We have to ground things down into the physical dimension for the average third dimensional humans to understand. And 3D humans are just, ones who they have to see it, they have to hear it, they have to believe it, they have to see a report about it. Like they need everything like in super like human tangible forms. And we're now shifting to become more fifth dimensional. So it's not just what do I see and hear and think about, it's what do I feel and what do I intuitively know? And it's being connected to energy and truth. If you want to learn more about this, there's a great book called Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukov. It was the book that actually shifted Oprah into becoming a spiritual person. And I love it. It's a really great book to help you understand this. So as we are transitioning into becoming fifth dimensional beings, people who are aware of intuition, aware of energy, we are now realizing that truth cannot and does not need to be packaged down and formulated into a hypothesis. Rather, it's something that can be felt. You can feel when someone is speaking truth. And you can feel when someone is not. And they can have, the graphics and the data. It's like, last year they're like, coconut oil is the worst thing ever for you. And here's the data on why coconut oil is going to give you a heart attack. A lot of people believed that. And then you're like, oh, that study was funded by the American Heart Association and they're against fats because they believe in sugar. And this actually has a political motive. And you see that there's research on everything and you could prove whatever you want with scientific research based off of like who you pay off essentially, but you can feel that it's not truth. So as we are moving into becoming multidimensional beings, we are not believing everything that we see, everything that can be proven, everything that's written in a textbook, and we're using our own internal compass. So with this episode, use your internal compass. If spirit guides are not your thing, they don't need to be your thing. If you're still here, I think you're interested. So you can admit that to yourself. That's cool. And we love that. So again, it needs to come in your own time. Do not rush the process. Do not think, oh, I need to now learn everything about the spirit guides because this is a new aspect of spirituality and I must take notes on it. Like that is coming in with the 3D mentality. Don't take notes on anything. Like honestly, don't even take notes on my podcast. Sit, listen, and feel. That's what this is about. Because the important things are going to stick with you. Like if there's one quote you love, sure, write that down. But we all have notebooks full of information that we never go back and read. And what ends up actually changing our lives is the information that sticks into our cellular memory. So we act upon that. So feel it. That's what this is all about, moving into feeling. So spirit guides, let's talk about them. So again, this is my opinion. People have different opinions on spirit guides. I'll talk about kind of different opinions on them, but this is sort of like the general consensus and mixed with my opinion. So you can have a different look on it too, and that's totally cool too. But this is sort of how most people are looking at spirit guides as well. Essentially, we all come from this one plane, and this plane is called the Akasha. And the word Akasha in Sanskrit means that with all possibilities. So if you heard the episode 100 with Daniela Gill about the Akashic records, she was reading from this layer of all possibilities, of pure potentiality, as you hear Deepak Chopra say. So the Akasha, you could even call it heaven. It's not really heaven. It's not like a place that only certain people go. We are all part of the Akasha, and it's a realm of totality, all possibilities. So from this layer of the Akasha, as we move closer to this physical plane, this 3D plane, we split up into souls. And these souls in a larger perspective are connected as soul groups. So there are bigger soul groups. And then within the soul groups, there's fragmented souls. So this is essentially Brahman, the universe, moving into Atman, the soul. And these souls carry the totality of the universe, but it's just a fragment of it. So you can think of the Akasha, Brahman, as the ocean. And we are all drops of the ocean. We contain the entire ocean inside of us. One drop contains the entire ocean, but we are just one drop, all coming from the same place. And the clusters, the soul groups, are groups of people who have similar vibrations. And in your life, you're going to come across some of them. There are people that just feel like soul fam to you, and you may be members of the same soul group. In different theories, for example, the Michael teachings, they look at soul groups as the archetypes. For example, I think episode number 4 or 5 is about discovering your archetype. It is honestly one of my favorite episodes I've done on this podcast because I'm obsessed with the Michael teachings. It's not Archangel Michael. It's actually basically a group of souls that looked up and channeled through this pretty much system of archetypes. It's very, very fascinating. I'm not going to get too deep into the Michael teachings, but that's episode like 4 or 5. It's one of my first ones. But we came down as soul clusters. You could be of the priestess, which is essentially like the inspirational, spiritual people. I'm part of that. The warriors, the kings, the artisans, the servers, the sages. There are different ones. So that's one perspective looking at it. And then other ones, they don't have names. There's just soul groups. And then from there, you move into your soul. And this all needs to be explained because for us to understand spirit guides, we must first understand spirit. And from there, when we are our souls, we essentially come down on this physical plane and we learn our first lesson here in human form or perhaps animal form. We are in a living form. You may have actually been a fish. I've been a fish before. You may have been a plant. You could be anything. And you learn lessons in each lifetime. And each lesson is going to take you to the next stage of development, the next stage of consciousness. So this cycle is karma. It's the cycle. It's the reason why we're back. If you are here on this planet, if you are listening to High Self Podcast, you're not perfect because we all have some karma. That's why we're here. We're here to learn lessons. And that's why life comes with a lot of painful experiences as well, because we're all here to learn lessons. And that karma on a macro scale is based off of what we need to learn in this lifetime that's not even in our control. And on a micro scale, our actions and the things that we do and the karma we receive back for them. Every action has a equal or opposite reaction, though it may not be immediate. So we come down here on this planet, we incarnate as various living beings, and we learn experiences in each of these lifetimes. And then from there, we eventually become humans. And as humans, especially at the beginning, it's not easy. And if we look at historically, our lifespans were much shorter. We had various diseases, etc. But we didn't come here without guidance. We've always had some guidance that no one can explain. And in Christianity, they call it angels. In pagan cultures, they call it fairies or gods, goddesses. You can call it anything. Every religion has their own form of these entities, of these assistants, how I like to look at it, who are guiding our human experience. And how do we know that? Because how do we know everything that we know? If we are not guided in some way, like how could we have figured out if I really firmly put this piece of wood with this piece of wood and rub them together for a really long time, that's eventually going to create fire. And then I can go inside the ocean and take these fish and then I can cook them over this. And this is how I do it. And like, there's just all of these things that are just crazy that like, how could we have just figured out without some sort of guidance, without some sort of intuition that was allowing us to move forward, to know the next step. And I'm sure all of you have experienced moments in your life that you're like, I don't know how I knew that, I just knew. And that was your intuition, that was your guidance, and that was your spirit guides actually helping you and assisting you. So we all have these spirit guides looking out for us. They're guiding us, protecting us, supporting us, and they bring the wisdom and perspective of all of the lifetimes that we have lived. So if you've ever experienced poverty, rape, love, anything that you've experienced in your previous lifetime, they carry that wisdom of. So that's why some people, you meet them and you're like, wow, you must be a really old soul, because they've been around for a long time and their spirit guides have a lot of experience in many different types of things. They're towards the end of their incarnation cycles and have completed most of their karma. They obviously still have karma if they're here, and they're going to be essentially transitioning at a certain point, we don't know how many lifetimes they have left, into them too becoming spirit guides. So spirit guides have no personal agenda. They are simply here to help you on your journey. Spirit guides were not necessarily incarnated in the past. I want to say that. Some of them may have been, but not all of them. A lot of them, especially the higher dimensional ones, have never been in human form. They are not the guides who are ever going to show themselves or tell you their names or anything like that. They are more just like beings of very, very high frequency, like the masters and teachers and guides in the Akashic records. They've never been incarnated. But you may have one that's like assisting you. You may have one that kind of shows itself to you. And that may have been one that has incarnated, and you can ask and see if you hear an answer. And I'll talk about how to do that. So we're always communicating with our guides. Even if you've never done automatic writing or channeling or anything like that, you are still communicating with your guides. You having an intuition, you having a spark, you having an idea, you just speaking and allowing words to flow through you, you writing poetry, music, dancing, any sort of creation, any sort of feeling like you're in the element of flow, are your guides in communication with you. And I also want to add, due to personal experience, sometimes your guides direct you towards things that can be painful and harmful and even traumatic. Why? 1, because it's a lesson that you may have needed. 2, because maybe that pain and trauma was better than what could have happened had you allowed yourself to move down that rabbit hole. So for example, let's say you were about to go on a date with this guy and it was your first time meeting him and he had this like really bad boy energy, but you were attracted to him. And it was your first time going on this date with him. You're super excited and you just know you're obsessed already. You would do anything he has to say. And maybe your spirit guides are aware that this guy does not have your best intention in mind. And he may actually hurt you. He may actually be the catalyst to your downfall. He may expose you to drugs. He could be rapist. I don't know, could be anything. He could just be really bad news. So to protect you, they may have you get into a car accident on the way there, because that would have prevented you from meeting him. And that car accident, though traumatic and though it is a horrible thing to happen to you, is better than what your relationship with this guy could have been. So I do want to say that the spirit guides often do create these negative experiences for us, and it's out of protection and it's out of our higher good, essentially. So I've definitely had experiences that are really painful, but when I look at what's the lesson behind this, it's so clear to me that this was the work of my guides. And then I realize how loved I am and how supported I am. And it's the most moving and touching thing to really understand how much your guides love you and have your back, how literally they're always protecting you. They're always there for you. You're never alone. And I think when you really sink into that and you feel that, like, it makes you emotional. It really does, because we feel like we're so alone on this planet and that we have, full control, full free will, but also full responsibility and full loneliness. And that's not the case. We have these guides. They're protecting us, and you can feel them. Like, I'm literally about to start crying just talking about it. And that's how I know that they're here right now as I say this podcast. Okay. So they protect us. They're here for us in so many ways. And when we really sink down into their love for us, there's nothing that we can't accomplish. And it's a beautiful thing. And it's something that I want for everyone to connect with their spirit guides, even though you already are, just in a deeper way, and to acknowledge them, because that strengthens your relationship with them. And when you strengthen your relationship with them, you can better communicate with them, and you can better ask for clarity and for understanding. And then anything that happens to you in life, you're instantly able to perceive why. Now, I also want to say that when talking to your spirit guides, my personal experience, and I think for most people, the response is coming in your voice. It's not coming in another voice. You're not like, hello, it's me, your spirit guide. Like, I think some people may hear that. That's never been my experience. It's always been my own voice, and it can oftentimes be confused with your own thoughts. And I think that's the hardest thing. is this coming from myself, my own thoughts, or is this coming from my spirit guides? And this is something that there's no like, here's how to know, because it's super, super intuitive and super, super nuanced. And most of the time it is a mix of the both. It's your spirit guides like giving you the feeling and the emotion and the knowingness, the truth, and then you intuitively interpreting it. And that's why, when you're about to make a bad decision and you're doing something wrong, but you're just all in. You're like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to do it. And you're kind of like, you don't even want to ask like, Spirit, what do you think? Because you so know the answer. So you begin to create this story for yourself that, oh, well, you know what? I only live once and people do this kind of stuff all the time and it's not that big of a deal and blah, 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 blah. Like that is coming from yourself. If it is something that is hurting you, if it is something that you would guess your spirit guides would not be happy about, then you're probably right. If it's something that you feel any guilt or shame around, guilt or shame that's coming from you and your own morality, because most guilt and shame actually comes from outside morality, but something that you're doing something wrong, like you're gossiping, you're about to go get plastic surgery, you're about to take like some drugs with some guys on the street, who knows, then you can rest assured that that's not spirit who's telling you, that's your own voice. But if it's something like, you really should quit your job, there's something bigger waiting for you. You have a bigger purpose on this planet and this job is eating you alive. Just trust that if you quit this job, amazing things are waiting for you. That is coming from your spirit guides because that's something that you cannot know. How can you know that when you quit your job, better things are waiting for you? That's just an intuitive hunch. So something like that that's guiding you, something that feels expansive, something that feels like truth, you can rest assured that your spirit guides are connected with that. Now, your own mind can be agreeing with it or it can be disagreeing with it, but behind something like that, something that feels intuitive, clairvoyant, knowing, and is bringing you closer to the direction of truth. Let me repeat that, truth. Your spirit guides will only do what is true. They won't let you live a lie. Then it's coming from spirit guides. And again, it comes in your own voice and it's something that takes a lot of time, a lot of practice, I'd say, to begin the conversation. And if you feel like totally shut off and you're like, come on, spirit guides, say something, do a freaking backflip. Guess what? They're not going to do it because they can feel that you're not trusting them. And it's fine because they're still going to support you and have your back, but you're not going to have this like dynamic relationship with them. You have to be open to receiving. So let's talk about what are the types of guides, because I think that this is really important because it can get confusing and it's not just one type of spirit guide. So we could look at source consciousness, the Brahman, the infinite universe, the omnipresent nurturing energy, all that is. This is not your spirit guide. This is just source. This is the spirit. This is the Akasha. This is where we all come from. Then we have our higher selves, our highest selves, as I like to say on this podcast. And that's essentially your soul beyond its human experience. So your soul is way bigger than just the soul that's in your body. In your body is just a fragment of the soul. So your entire soul, that greater connection within you, but also outside of you, that is your highest self. So it is essentially the ultimate you that you can be. It is an infinite source of wisdom, of possibility. It's that voice inside of you that is guiding you to you being your fullest expression. So that's really what your highest self is. You being the ultimate you that you can be on this planet. Your true, your full soul. Then we have what we can call angels, fairies, archangels. Different people have different words. And these are essentially what most of us refer to as spirit guides. Now, these are essentially kind of the messengers, the protectors, the guides, the seers. I think of them as personal assistants. I really do. Because they're sort of like in the backstage and you're not paying attention and they're like moving something over here and they're like opening up that pathway there and you have no idea all the stuff that they're doing around you. That is keeping you on your path towards your highest self. So they're pretty much like full-time, like moving the drapes and like preparing things and planting seeds so you can live your fullest expression, which is freaking amazing. And you can always call upon them, which I'll talk about next. Then we have our ancestors. Now, your ancestors can be acting as spirit guides for you. Not all of your ancestors will be spirit guides. Some of them will. You may have an ancestor that really strongly supports you and moves with you, and you can very much feel their presence. Or you can have different ancestors guiding you at different times in your life. I know that before I connected with my grandpa, I talked about this on the podcast, the one about ancestors. It was sometime last year, but I did automatic writing, which is essentially when you start to write, you meditate on whoever it is that you want to bring through. And then you start to write, like asking questions, and then you write back as if you're that person. So at first you're just using your own imagination, but then I started to see my handwriting got smaller and smaller and smaller. And I have very big, sloppy handwriting. It was getting so neat and so small. And I was getting just these downloads, these like messages that I would never like give myself. Like I was just asking him for advice, and the things he was telling me were things I would never have advised myself. But so like I never had met him before, and now I know it's so him. So since I made that connection with him, he's been a really strong spirit guide in my life, and I know that he's always with me and he's always supporting me. And he may have been before, but I think after I made that connection, it became much stronger. And I do know that I have a lot of my guides from my mom's ancestry, which comes from India, which is why I'm interested in Ayurveda, and my whole life have like pretty much just been super Indian. And that's coming because my mom's mom, like their whole lineage is from India. And I didn't even know that until I took an ancestry test. So that's how amazing this ancestry stuff is. So your ancestors can be working as spirit guides with you. Not all of them. I also want to say not all of your ancestors have your highest intention in mind, not to sound mean or scary or anything like that. But when you do call upon your ancestors, which is just something Malika taught me, that you must say, those that have my highest intention in mind. Because not all of your ancestors do, because a lot of them were hurt, they were killed, they lived really traumatic lives, and they can hold on to resentment and hatred, not towards you, just their bitterness towards the situation. Not that those ancestors are like coming around to haunt you or anything, but when you call upon your ancestors, you just want to clarify those that have my highest intention in mind. Those that love me unconditionally. That's another good one to say. Those that love me unconditionally and have my highest intention in mind. So when I'm like channeling this like weird, it's almost like I keep losing my voice. It's this really weird feeling. So sorry if that keeps happening, guys. Okay, so it's super important for us to realize that and to see that our ancestors will support us. They will come, they will go, and we have different ones that come forth at different periods of our lives. We take a quick break from this episode so I can share with you an amazing opportunity. Are you interested in having a career focused on health and wellness? Well, if so, then the universe is calling you to become a holistic health coach. I am offering this incredible deal, a discount of $1,500 off my alma mater, Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is the world's largest nutrition school with guest teachers such as Deepak Chopra, Chris Carr, Dr. Hyman, and Dr. Andrew Whale, and so many others. It is split between 6 months of health coaching programs teaching you hundreds of nutritional theories, including Ayurveda, as well as 6 months of business coaching. And as an additional bonus, I am offering a webinar where I will teach you how to use social media to create a thriving career as a health coach. On top of that, I have created a private Facebook community just for the Highest Self podcast listeners who are becoming health coaches to connect with each other, meet up with each other, and support one another on this journey. So if you're interested, send an email over to Sahara, Sahara, at eatfeelfresh.com with subject IIN. Again, Sahara at eatfeelfresh.com with subject IIN. And I will personally send you back the email that will allow you to get a $1,500 off discount, as well as my business coaching webinar and the private Facebook group. I'm so excited for you to begin your journey as a health coach. So also spirit animals. This is another really important one. people, especially in the shamanic tradition, they very much connect with the animals. And the animal is not just like that one specific animal. It's not like you can have your dog protecting you or your former cat or something, but it's more of the collective spirit of that animal, what that animal represents, like as the collective. So what is the medicine of that animal? You know, we always talk about like, what is the medicine that this and that is going to bring me? And that medicine is the truth. And everything has medicine in it. Plants, animals, humans, situations. What is guiding me through this? So the animal can bring you different medicine, different stages in your life. In most traditions, they say that you have like your power animal, like your totem animal, and that's like your animal that you have throughout your life. It's like your go-to protection animal. And then we have different spirit animals that come and go. It could be according to how the energy of the day is feeling, the energy of the month, energy of the year, different situations, different animals, medicines can come through. We talk a lot about this in the episode I did with one of my besties, Allison Charles. That episode came out, I believe, in January. So check that one out. We talk a lot about how to connect with your spirit animals, and that's a lot of the work that she does. So, for example, I've always connected to the jaguar, just like that pitta energy clearly that I have. But I also really have resonated with the dolphin my whole life because of the playful energy. And that's something I aspire to be more of, though I'm more of a jaguar, but I really want to be a dolphin. And I also love the peacock, just how it's beautiful and elegant and how it is a sign of the East, of Persia and India, where my ancestors are from. But they're also like badass. Like you don't mess with the peacock because she'll bite your ass. And I like that. So you can base your totem animal based off of what you resonate with, but it's not just like, I think koalas are really cute. Like, do you have the energy of the koala? Is your spirit like a koala spirit? Are you really cuddly and soft? And like my friend Rosie Acosta, who's been on this podcast, like we call her the koala. She's such a koala. Like you just like, she has this like motherly, sweet, kind, nurturing energy to her. We're like, oh my God, you're such a koala. And other people, you know, you're like, wow, you're such an owl. And like, they're just so wise and, you know, in themselves. So you can feel it. I think it's sometimes easier to see the spirit animals on other people versus ourselves, but we all have them. So there's different elements of the guides that I think was important to talk about, but we're going to connect to our guides in different ways. I look at my guides as a team. It's not just one guide. It's different guides that keep on coming up for me. It literally gets hard to breathe. So it just depends on what I need at that time, but they're working together. They're working collectively as a group. And I know that they are always, always, always paving that path to bring me to my highest self. So just trust that. You don't need to prove it. You don't need to know anything. There are practices that you can do, which we'll talk about, that you can like ask for their names, etc. This is what my opinion on that is. So your spirit guides don't have a name. Like they're not humans. Like names are a human thing. Animals don't walk around like, hey, like I'm Simba, I'm Nala. Like that is something that us humans gave to animals because we want to identify things. We want to label things. But animals don't give themselves names, only in The Lion King. So your spirit guides don't actually have a name because no one named them. We as humans, oftentimes in the superhuman, I want to understand everything consciousness, give them names because that helps us understand them. That being said, there's nothing wrong with giving your spirit guide a name. If that helps you connect with them, if that helps you relate to them, then that is totally fine. But it's not that it actually has a name. So I know people are like, my spirit guide's name is like Moniqua, and like mine is like Jakarta. And it's like, no, you kind of just chose that name for them, which is cool, but that's not their name. That's something that you came up with. So I do want to say that perhaps a spirit guide maybe who used to be incarnated has a name, and they're using that name if it helps you bring up like a memory. Like let's say it was like your great grandmother and she's like, my name is Rose. And then you find out your great grandmother's name was actually Rose. She was using that name so you could identify her. She no longer goes as Rose because she's a spirit, but she could be using that name to help you make sense of it. So let's talk about how to connect with your guides. Now, the easiest place to start is in meditation. do whatever it is that makes you feel aligned. So that could just be a seated meditation practice that you're breathing. It could be a seated meditation followed by pulling tarot cards. It can be connecting to crystals, whatever crystals resonate with you. For this type of work, stuff that opens up your third eye, like an amethyst is going to be the best, or clear quartz, something that connects you with your source. And get into a place that you feel like you are in flow. For me, that's honestly taking walks, doing something that I'm moving my body. That is how I connect. That's what makes me tap in. Not every time, but that's a really good thing. And then also having conversations with people that inspire me. When I'm having conversations with someone and we're like going in, I can feel that channel opening up. And then when I'm by myself, I'm like, whoop, I'm like ready to go in. So find what works for you. Could be a walk, could be a yoga class, could be meditation, breath work, sound bath, kundalini yoga, crystals, gardening, cooking, anything. There's so many practices out there, and that's the beauty of it. You can pick and choose what helps you align. And from that place of alignment, talk to your guides. You can start by introducing yourself, though they know who you are. And you can just be like, hey, it's me, Erica. It's been a while. Well, not really, but I haven't talked to you. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you're doing for me on a daily basis, and how deeply grateful I am for your guidance and for you being there, illuminating the path for me. And I just want to say that I recognize you, I see you, I feel you, and I'm so appreciative of everything that you do for me. It could just start as that. It doesn't need to be like the first time, like, tell me your name, tell me everything about you. Where are you from? What year did you die? It can just be, and it actually should just be like the first like 100 times, you just offering gratitude. Because the gratitude helps you align. The gratitude brings you in a higher vibration, and that's what you need to connect to spirit. So start with just displaying your gratitude for them. You can say it in your head, or you can say it out loud. Sometimes I say it in my head, probably most of the time, because they can hear you in your head. But there's something that's really powerful about saying it out loud, because it kind of shows that you really believe in this. Because if you're saying it out loud and you're not laughing and you're not like mocking yourself, then you really believe in it. If you have a hard time saying it out loud, that means you don't really believe in it. You don't need to do it in public, but you should just be like, yes, I thank you guys. I love you. Thank you for everything that you've done for me. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for this wonderful spirit clan that I have, the beauty you have gifted me with. Thank you so much. Really show your gratitude for them. And after dozens of times of showing gratitude, you will notice that things are moving a little bit faster. You're going to notice that your intuition is getting more on point. Like certain people, you just have a feeling about them. Certain conversations, you know where it's going to go. People are talking, you know what they're about to say. You know what's going to happen. People just say about a situation and you know how that situation is going to end up. Like, this is what's happening to me now. And it's like, I can't even explain it. Like, my fiance was like talking about how he wanted to like hire some like wedding DJ. And at first I was like, oh yeah, cool. And then the download came through like the whole situation of what would have happened that night and how I so would not have been happy with it because the guy was going to turn into his whole like personal performance and it would have ruined the night. And then I like told him, I was like, we cannot hire this person because this is going to happen. He's like, why'd you just make that whole situation up? I'm like, I didn't make it up. I just saw it all happen. And he's like, now he's just like, okay, we won't hire the DJ. But you begin to just know things. Like, you can't explain it. You just know how things are going to pan out, whether it's good or bad. And that actually really helps you because you can prevent yourself by going down a rabbit hole that could not have been the right one. So you're going to notice that before anything. And it's going to get more and more apparent, more and more clear. And that's you shifting into a more fifth dimensional being and your clairvoyance is opening up. Now, us humans, we have total capacity to be clairvoyant. We all are clairvoyant. We all are actually psychics. The psychic is no different from you. And I love like Natalie Miles, who was on this podcast recently. This is something that she super teaches, like we're all psychic and it's so true. But we have just closed up that portal. And once we open that portal up, we realize that we all have access to the exact same information and the same intuition. It just takes trust. Now, from the gratitude, from the increase of clairvoyance, we begin to notice the signs. Now, these signs are our spirit guides working for us. So that could be you missed the bus, and little did you know that if you had made that bus, you wouldn't have been able to pick up the phone call, which would have led to this business meeting, which would have led to abundance and all because you missed that bus. So you start to notice how these signs line up, like how you met this person and that allowed you to meet that other person. And then you guys wrote a book together or something crazy happened. So you notice that you just end up in the right situation at the right time. And that's your spirit guides being like, see, we're doing work for you. Like, we got you. And they were always doing that work, but the more gratitude that you have, the more appreciative you are. Essentially, the harder they work for you because they see that you're coming forth with gratitude instead of ego. And that's really important for spirit because spirit is all about aligning with the truth. Now, you're going to notice the signs. These signs are happening all the time. None of us really realizes all of the ways that we're being pointed and guided to. If we actually knew, I think it would blow open our minds. Like, I really believe on a kind of deeper level that everything is sort of like, in a way, destined. And even the free will that we have, I think, is much less than we think. I think that we definitely have free will, but I think that so much of it is the guidance and the direction. And sometimes we needed to make a bad choice to lead to a good choice. So it was our free will to make that bad choice, but that bad choice needed to happen. So like the more and more I'm getting older, the more and more I'm believing in destiny, but I still very much do believe that free will exists. But when you're living in total alignment, I think that it's much less about like you having to make a decision. I think that state of like you having to make a decision is you transitioning into becoming more fifth dimensional. And once you've become more fifth dimensional, there's way less decisions that need to be made because you just intuitively know. And it's almost like not really a decision anymore. Like I remember when I was like 23, I would always like be like, what do I do about this? What do I do about that? And I was like writing pros and cons and like having to consult with people about it. And that never happens anymore. I don't ask anyone for advice because I know that no one knows what I need to do. Only my soul knows. And intuitively, I always know what the truth is. Sometimes it's not what I want to do, but I know what the truth is. So that's part of working with the guidance. Now, I want to say that a really beautiful way that you can start working with your spirit guides after you've connected with them, after you've noticed the signs, after you've remained in gratitude, is to ask for guidance. You know, our guides are here to guide us. So you can ask for guidance. If you're in a situation that you don't know what to do, you can ask them, say, Spirit, I need your guidance on the situation. Please show me with your signs, with giving me the emotion to guide me in the direction of my highest calling, which direction I should turn. And I always ask them, show me excitement for what is the answer that is the highest serving for me and all who that is around me. I always ask for excitement. Like, let me feel excited about that decision. Let me feel excited about that direction. Because when you feel excited about something, that means that that's exactly where your spirit needs to go. So I ask for that excitement to be really clear. Like, should I, write a book about XYZ? Like, yes or no. And if I'm on the fence, I'm like, please give me excitement around it if it's the right answer. And if not, just don't give me excitement around it. And then from there, I don't have to like come back and check in. I just naturally over the next few days, am I feeling more called to it? Or am I feeling like, oh, this is really not the time. I don't want to write that. So you can ask them for guidance. You can ask them for a sign. So for example, when I go to the beach, most of the time I ask for dolphins to appear. I connect, I give my gratitude to the guides, and I say, please, it's kind of a messed up thing, but I'm like, please, if you're there, show me a dolphin. And most of the time they don't show me a dolphin, honestly, because you shouldn't say, if you're there, you should show me a dolphin. But do you know what happened that was really funny this summer? So normally I'm like, please show me dolphin spirit, and I never see dolphins. And I was there with my fiance, and I was just in a really high vibration, and he normally doesn't come to the beach because he's just like, working in the music studio. And I was just in such a happy place to have him there, like in my beautiful home. And then out comes like a dozen dolphins, and they're just like jumping, like I was in the ocean. They were so close to me, like a dozen dolphins just like going by for like 10 minutes together. And I literally started crying. And that's how I knew that that was spirit saying, you didn't ask for it now, but you're in that high vibration. So we're going to show you the dolphins. So your spirit guides don't like to prove things to you, but they respond to your frequency. So if you get into a high frequency, that's when they show you the signs. It's not when you're like, come on, show me the sign if you're real, because that's coming forth with kind of expectation, and that's not what this is about. So ask for signs. You can ask for an animal, you can ask for a number, you can ask for a color to appear, a vision to appear, an emotion in your body, whatever it is you relate to. Some people are super kinetic. They feel things in their body. Like, if this is the right person for me, allow me to feel total heart openness when I think about them, when I see them. Some people are much more visual. Like, if this is the right person for me, like, please show me the number, 201 or whatever it is, or the color purple, or please show me an image of the beach or whatever it is. And some people are more audio, like, please allow it to come through sound. So that's up to you. You can experiment with different ones, but I do like to ask for signs more so in situations. That's how I like to experience it. I'm less of that. It's more of just like experiential. So seeing dolphins or the number 14 is a really big number for me. So when I start to see the number 14 like everywhere, that's how I know that my spirit guides are looking out for me and protecting me. And then when I don't see the number 14, I'm like, oh, damn it. No one cares. No, I'm kidding. But number 14 is like an extra thumbs up. So commit to practices that keep you aligned with your highest self. So that is doing things on a daily basis that bring you in a high frequency. Meditating, exercising, yoga, Pilates, gardening, cooking, spending time with family, journaling, buying flowers, essential oils. There are a lot of essential oils that can actually really open up your third eye. There's a new doTERRA one called Copaiba, and that is a massively intuitive third eye expanding essential oil. So head over to iamsahararose.com/wellness to check that out and to get a bunch of free gifts, like $3,500 of free gifts with that. And that's something that has been massive for me. Essential oils, frankincense, very, very intuitive for the third eye. Oils are a great, great tool. So commit to the practices that keep you aligned. It's very important for us to remain in high frequency as much as possible. So if there's something that you're doing regularly that brings you down to a really low vibration, think about a way to stop doing that this year, honestly. And I know you could say, oh, well, it's my whole job. My whole work brings down my frequency. Well, that means that it's not the right job for you. That's not your work, actually. That's work that you've put on yourself, but that's not your work, because your work should bring you to a higher frequency. Like, I never thought that I would be sit here talking about spirit guides, and this is like literally my job. But I kept aligning with my truth, and I ended up here because that's what I was meant to do. And you are meant to do whatever it is that sets your soul on fire and makes you feel alive and keeps you connected. And the only way to get there is to start doing things that make you feel connected on a daily basis. Because frequency attracts frequency, and your frequency cultivates, and you get even higher frequency. And that's when things start to line up and you start to fall into Kriya, the effortless flow. So daily practices that keep you as your highest self, and outsource what makes you feel low. Hire someone to do it. It's honestly worth the money. There's nothing worth your frequency. There's nothing worth a bad mood. If it's like cleaning your house, you just can't figure out a way to do what you love to make more money so you can hire someone to do that thing. Whatever it is in your business, focus on what you love. You'll actually make more money that way, and you'll be able to hire someone else to do the things that you don't love. This is for anything, guys. And if it's your total job, then focus on what makes you feel in alignment. And from there, you will find the career path that best serves you. This is something we talk a lot about on this podcast. So if this is your first episode, you got a lot of episodes that will help guide you to your dharma, to your purpose. And that's really what I'm here to help you with. And above all, go with the flow. Sometimes in life, we have these structured plans like, oh, things have to go like this. I need to be married by the time I'm 27, my first kid by the time I'm 30, and the second one when I'm 32, and then we're going to have this house by 35, and then it's going to look like this, and it's going to be like that, and we're going to take vacations here, and all these things are going to line up. And then what happens? None of it happens. Why? Because you weren't going with the flow. And that idea that you had may not actually have been what your soul needed in this lifetime, or what you were manifesting. Maybe what you were thinking was not in alignment with what you wanted, so you weren't creating it, because our thoughts become our reality. So the best way to live the best reality is to go with the flow. And go with the flow does not mean that you have no goals, no initiatives, no thing that you want to achieve. You can totally have goals. You can totally have your resolutions, intentions. That's a beautiful thing to have. The thing about going with the flow is you are not fixated on those intentions. You are not saying, this is the only way it's going to work out, and I'm not going to stop until it looks like this. It may have the same essence. It may have the same meaning to you, but it can come in a different way. So, for example, let's say you want to make this much money and buy a house on the beach in Malibu. Well, maybe your energy wasn't there. Maybe you weren't supposed to live in Malibu. Maybe they knew about the fires and they didn't want you to live there. So many things that could have happened that blocked you from it, whether it was your creation or creation from spirit. So it is important for you to go with the flow, because then you can assess what is happening in the now. And in the now, which is the only permanence we have, because the now is always the now. So actually, we think of the now as super fleeting, whereas the now is so permanent, because if you're always in the now, you're permanently living in alignment with your truth. So going with the flow is having your intentions, but not becoming overly fixated on them. So when things start to move in a different direction, you can assess, okay, how do I pivot with that? How do I shift with that? How does my energy need to move with that? And maybe something you need to change, or maybe that thing was not actually what you needed. So go with the flow. Maybe you thought 2018 was going to be a huge year in your career. It ended up being a way more interpersonal year, and you had to deal with some old trauma that you hadn't thought about in years. But that's exactly what your soul needed to get to where you're going to be in your career, maybe this year, you know? So going with the flow is to allow, accept, trust, and surrender, which is the hardest thing for us to do in our super pitta societies. And last of all is to trust your intuition. We don't give ourselves enough credit. We second guess ourselves. We seek others' opinions for everything. The moment we sit into a car, we turn on an audiobook, turn on the radio, turn on a phone call, something to distract us. And what we really need is more space. We need more space, because in that space and in that silence is when our intuition can come through. And your intuition is always working. Your intuition has saved you from death millions of times. Did you know that? Your intuition's already done that for you. Every time you were about to cross the street and you didn't, and thank God, because that car just raced by. Every time you were about to go on a date with that guy and that guy ended up being crazy, thank God it didn't work out. Every time you want to get that job and thank God you didn't, because you ended up manifesting your own personal career. That was your intuition working. So you have to trust your intuition. You have to trust the guidance. You have to notice that the thoughts that you have are there for a reason. And if something is pushing you towards something that is great, expansive, true, then this is your spirit working for you so you can expand into your highest self. So trust your inner knowingness. Don't search for others for the answer. You don't need to consult with your family and friends. Like a podcast I did was about going on an advice detox, guys. And that is essentially to not ask people for advice on things, because we're so used to that, especially as women. Well, Sally, what do you think about this? Mom, what do I do about that? And it keeps us further from our truth, because the moment something happens to us, we consult a whole team of people who don't really know. They don't know everything. Neither do we. But our intuition can help guide us towards the right direction. So that's why we need to trust our intuition, because our intuition is going to illuminate the path and guide us the way. And our intuition gets stronger every time we trust it, because then when we listen to it, we strengthen our bonds with ourselves and we start to take ourselves more seriously, and we begin to further move along the direction of our highest path. So trust your intuition. You are already such an intuitive being. I mean, if you're still here like an hour later listening to this podcast, you are full power. Okay. I just want you to give yourself credit for a moment that you are super intuitive. You already know about spirit guides. You already know about this stuff. Like, this is in your DNA. And it is so the time for you right now to fully step up into what your intuition is telling you to do, because you're here for a reason. And everything you've gone through in your life was a gift for you to have the exact experiences that you need to evolve as your soul's highest calling. And sometimes we go through traumas and we go through the shittier chapters in our memoir. And that's because eventually we are going to transmute that pain into wisdom and be able to use it to share with others. So wherever you are on your personal memoir, this is exactly where you need to be. And now it's up to you where it is that you want to go. And the more that you trust yourself, the more that you align with yourself, the easier this journey will be, because you, instead of moving along this life with blindfolds on, you have this not total clear electromagnetic vision, but you have a more clear knowing of, I know that this is going to work out. I know that this is where I'm going to go. I don't know the point A to B to C to D, but I know that this is where I need to be. So trust that. Don't think that any dream is too big. Don't think that it's too late. Don't think that you're too old. Don't think that someone else has already done it and therefore there's no space for you anymore. Because the way that you're going to do it is very, very differently from the way that it's ever been done before. And you don't know what anyone else's dharma is, and it's not up to you to know. So don't worry about that. Don't focus on other people. We focus so much on other people. Don't focus on other people. Focus on yourself and trust. Just trust that when you fully surrender and you fully allow yourself to receive the guidance from your spirit guides, that you will evolve to your soul's highest calling. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know in the iTunes review, when you write a review, if you loved this episode, if you want more about spirit guides, any other spiritual topics that you like. I check the reviews every day. It's the best place, and it also really helps get the word out. And if you loved this episode, I would love to share with you the first half of my unreleased book, Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type, which is different from my book, Eat Feel Fresh. It is my unreleased, never to be released book, because it is now part of my Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type program. I would love to send it to you absolutely free. All you got to do is leave me a review in the iTunes store, take a screenshot, and email it over to me at Sahara@eatfeelfresh.com. Again, take a screenshot of the review and email it to me at Sahara@eatfeelfresh.com, and I will send you the first half of my unreleased book, Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type. Namaste.